Forgot what I was going to say. Hey, back again, and today I want to do a video. I was going to do a video on why I left teaching. Again, I used to be a teacher for 11 years, high school, social studies, government, econ, entrepreneurship, all that stuff. And I've kind of maybe hinted at it before, but I thought why I left, maybe that'd be too pessimistic, or maybe not the whole side of the story. Anyway, it'd be better, I think, if I just did two videos. Video today on the things I didn't like about teaching, which is probably one of the reasons why I left. And then tomorrow I'll do a video on the things I did like about teaching, because I did it for a long time. I was kind of good at it. I did enjoy it, but there were some things I didn't like, of course. And, these are my experiences. But I've been in education long enough and have a lot of friends, colleagues. Like, I've been in the system. I guess I'm a vet. This is kind of just my opinion on maybe what's wrong or some of the difficulties teachers and education faces today right now. So the number one thing I just didn't like about teaching, and this might sound weird at first, is just all the hoop jumping, right? You have no idea as a teacher all the extra things that are asked of educators to do every single day in those classrooms of theirs that's not teaching. It's ridiculous. For example, like I used to joke that I wasn't a teacher. I was a professional hoop jumper. Got in trouble for that a couple times. But that's just kind of how I felt, because you're just always being pulled and asked to do so many things and going in so many different directions. And when so much is asked of you, of course, education and classroom management and control is gonna hurt because of that. For example, like lesson plans, right? Every single day, not every school does this, but more and more, and some schools don't, most do. I've been in schools where you didn't have to and you did, but lesson planning is such a pain in the butt. Now, again, don't get me wrong. There's a reason for lesson plans, and I'm all in favor of that. It provides accountability. It's a roadmap. It gives direction for your class and what you're covering, and make sure you're covering the things that you need to. And again, I'm all for that, and I'm not against lesson plans. But some of these lesson plans that they ask teachers to do, it's insane how much work they expect you to put into a lesson plan. And some people may be better at it than others, but to do it like good and correct in the right way, as a teacher, you're spending maybe an hour or two on a lesson plan for one class, for one day. Think about that for a second, right? As a teacher, that's a good hour or two of your day is required to develop these lesson plans, right? That's for one class. Say you were like me in high school and you taught 3 different classes a day. Do the math. You got to do 1, 2, 3 lesson plans every single day for the classes you're supposed to teach, right? Well, what's so bad about a lesson plan? First of all, they're just, in my school, they tried to make it kind of fill in the blank, formulaic, to make it a bit easier, but it was just so much work to do. For example, you had to go into your standards and then pull out all of the standards that align to what you're teaching that day, which is good and provides accountability and makes sure you're teaching what you need to. But the standards are just pages and pages of different content and standards and substandards, and it's just a labyrinth of things. And when you teach in a day, you usually cover so many different things to get every single standard you're trying to cover in a lesson plan. It can be very, very difficult. On top of that, at the school I was at before, there were reading standards, which was a whole separate ream of paper or instruction booklet or whatever that you had to also make sure in your class you were aligning it to these pages of different reading standards to make sure that you were covering that. So not only do I got to teach history content and make sure it aligns to standards, but the activities and the lessons I do have to align to all these separate reading standards. And this is high school, seniors. I got to make sure that I'm still doing this, right? I'm not a reading, yes, I teach reading, it's important, I get it, but it's just like, that's not my focus. I'm on content, and you're going to be reading and interacting in my class if I'm doing my job. It's crazy. And then you got to go step by step, right? And detail, at least at my school, your entire lesson plan, right? I've been teaching for, like I said, 11 years. And these lessons I've been doing, I know them like the back of my head. I know what I'm doing, but they have to write everything down, right? Here's the bell work, first 5 minutes, right? Next 10 minutes, we're going to go and review the bell work, and I'm going to start collecting homework from the next day. And then the next 15 minutes, we're going to do a pre-reading activity. And the next 20 minutes is going to be notes. And then 5 minutes in the notes, we're going to have a check to review the notes. And then the next 15 minutes to finish the notes. And then we're going to do a handout or an article. And we're going to have 10 minutes to work on this article, right? And then to give the kids 10 minutes to work at partners. You have to detail that all out. And I'm sorry, right? In a class, if you're teaching by the clock, it's useless. Because there's no point. Sometimes it takes you longer than you think to get through notes. Maybe if the kids are asking a lot of questions and you stop and answer, well, there goes your timetable that you work so hard to do, right? If the kids are antsy that day and it just takes longer to get started, you get a phone, whatever it is, schedules don't work in the classroom. And as a general guideline, yes, right? But to be expected to stick to that strict schedule doesn't work, right? You got to do your warm-up activity. You got to lesson plan your exit activity. So how you starting and how you ending your day. There's different tier 1 in my school standards. So sometimes there's kids who struggle, right? They maybe need a little bit of extra help in the day. You got to go and look at a separate thing of standards for tier 1 instruction. And how does that fit into your lesson plans every single day? Oh my gosh, this is just going to be a video on lesson plans, right? Well, these kids are going to be able to work in partners, okay? Or they're going to be, I'm going to reteach, or maybe they're only reading or working on a certain section of the content, or maybe they're going to do graphic organizers as a way to, retain this information. You have to detail all of that. This is just for one class, one lesson plan. It is ridiculous how much time is spent on these things. And at the school I was at before, you would spend all block semester, and you're always going back and retuning and tweaking these things, but you would spend so much time invested on these lesson plans, and guess what happens next year? Because grades aren't where they're supposed to be, and the school is falling behind on achievement. To make sure we're all doing a better job and there's more accountability, we're changing the lesson plan. So all that work you did last year, throw it away, and we have a new template. We got new lesson plans with new requirements, and you got to kind of start over from scratch getting these lesson plans in. Oh my gosh, it is just ridiculous. Okay, change of plans, okay? This video is just on lesson plans. I don't got time to go into everything else. It is just insane, and you have to understand, it is just, again, there's accountability, but there has to be a balance. And when you are making your teachers spend so much time on these lesson plans, right, that often get thrown out the window when the kids don't, to expect the kids to align perfectly with what you have in mind doesn't work, very rarely. And so you're just wasting all this time on stuff that doesn't really have very much merit. That's extra time I could be using grading papers, making great lessons, right? Engaging lessons and activities for my kids. That's time I could be catching up on emails. That's time I could be working on my classroom. That's time I could be taking a break, a mental break, and just relax so I'm not so stressed. But there's just so much lesson planning to be done. It is ridiculous. And there are teachers who, I have many friends they literally spend their entire weekends, okay, lesson planning for the week ahead. And then they teach all day. They go home and they grade all night. And then all weekend they're planning again for the upcoming week, right? It is ridiculous. And you better believe those people are stressed to the max. They have they do nothing, right? They give everything they have to this job because those lesson plans are such a drain on just a teacher's time. And as a teacher, you have so much to do. Time is valuable. And we're over lesson planning, at least again in my experience, right? You can make lesson plans a lot more simpler. You know, if you're just kind of in general, right? Here are the standards I'm covering. In general, here's the activities we're supposed to cover today. And if it was just that, I could do that maybe in 15, 20 minutes without all the extra bells and whistles and the step-by-step procedures. And again, because again, you need the accountability, you need a roadmap, you got to have some direction in your classroom. You know, having no lesson plan at all is a recipe for disaster. I'm not against lesson plans, again, but the way that they're implemented, it's just too much out of teaching. And the idea is, well, tell me if this sounds familiar, right? Well, if we have documentation on everything each teacher is covering in their class or supposed to be, then the students should do better because we can show, I mean, we're not, you know, we don't want to go into a classroom and actually see what the kids are doing. And, you know, we can look at test scores and exit exams, and that can give us an idea. But no, these lesson plans, this is going to show us kind of how well, you know, our classes are run and how good our schools are. It's something that they can kind of show to the higher levels, the people up top, that they're doing their job. And it's just like, you should be a teacher, right? You shouldn't be a lesson planner. But it's kind of run amok. And it's just so tiring. It's so much work, and it's such a drain. And as new teachers, oh man, I feel bad because as a new teacher, to have to, you know, plan everything out, things that you've never done before. As a teacher, things that maybe you don't even know. As a new teacher, there's many times my first year, the night before I taught, I had to go crack open a textbook, and I had to teach myself, you know, these historical events and sections because, you know, European history and I'm not an expert on that. I'm more of a U.S. guy. But teach myself the material literally the day before I had to teach it to these kids. Okay? Phone, don't need it. And then again, have to like lesson plan. It is too much. And it just takes away a lot of teacher freedom. It's too strict. It's too stringent. There's very little flexibility. And again, if I didn't get my lesson plans done correctly, or they weren't done on time, you know, I'll get like slap on the wrist or, you know, finger pointing or, hey, it's, you know, so there's not like huge consequences, but it's just that I'm falling behind and I got to go and make it up, and it snowballs very, very quickly. It's very common for a lot of teachers to just be like weeks behind on the lesson plans because it's just, they're asked too much. And at that point, you just throw it out the window. You know, I got 3 weeks left in this class. My lesson plans are 5 weeks behind. There's just no, it's too much to ask of teachers. And it's on top of everything else, it's just asking too much. It's a bridge too far. There you go. Well, I met my time. I wasn't expecting to spend that much time on lesson plans, but I really dislike them, so I'm not surprised. I guess this will be like a 3-part video, and then I'll come back tomorrow and talk about the other things. They won't be as detailed on what I didn't like about teaching, or just what makes teaching difficult today in the United States, or at least in Arizona, because that's where I taught. So, all right. Anyway, I got stuff to do. I know you do too, and I'll catch you later. Bye.